Good afternoon. Good afternoon for those participants who are from Brazil, and good afternoon to our US colleagues who are from the Eastern Standard Time, and from the Pacific side, it's still morning. Good morning. I should not forget from Asia. I think we have a few people from Asia, and I do thank the sacrifice they have made to be with us. So good morning. So it should be probably 3 a.m. in the morning. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for your interest. Thank you for your time. So today's the team is product innovation, launching million-dollar brands, and scaling e-commerce. I would like to give special thanks to Anna and her team, and our IT people who have made this possible, and they have given us much support. Thank you very much. I will be speaking for some minutes. I will give a short introduction to our firm. Then I shall talk a few words for myself. Then I will address some housekeeping issues, what's going to happen. And then I'm going to introduce Rich Goldstein. And then I will turn the show over to Rich, Rick, and Jason. So about our firm, in my own words, we have been established since 1959. We started in 1959. We were Daniel and Company. The abbreviation in Portuguese was CIA, so people used to call us Daniel CIA. In 2002, we became a law firm, a registered law firm before the Brazilian Bar Association. And during this course, we grew. We grew with some responsibility. And now we are about 220 people, including partners, associates, staff members. We have had the challenge of recruiting, and we have the constant challenge of retaining talents. It's not easy, especially young people now. Most people want to be entrepreneurs, but we have done a good job considerably. We do everything in terms of IP, and we have a growing, which is becoming significant business in digital business. Over the years, I have headed the patent department for about 20 years. And now I am a team member of client satisfaction / client success. I enjoy what I do, and I'm still involved in many aspects in the patent part. One of the things that my managing partner, Lisa Daniel, did was she implemented a very successful diversity and inclusion program. And it's not a facade, it's something real, and we're proud of it. So we have a fair balance of lady partners and guys. I think that even the lady partners are more than us. We have lady in key positions in our firm, and we're very proud, as I mentioned, of that. So Daniel has now, some years ago, we rebranded our name, and we are now called Daniel Law. So we have been around for 60 years. About myself, I'm a qualified patent agent before the Brazilian Patent Office and before our local intellectual property association. I did law school at a ripe age, but I've become a lawyer for the last 20 years. And I do a lot of traveling because, as I mentioned, I'm on the team where I deal with clients. I met Rich Goldstein about 5 years ago. We met at two conferences, FICPI conferences, where and then later I had the honor of sharing a breakfast panel at AIPLA, which is American Intellectual Property Law Association. So we have been friends, even though we have been distant. And some years, sometimes I go to conferences, other parts of the world, and sometimes Rich is in other areas, but our friendship continues. And to be quite honest, when I wanted something in the webinar, and we have been having a lot of webinars, you probably know that. So I reached out to Rich and I said, Rich, I want something different. Make no mistake, I love what I do. I love patents. I like the IP portfolios, managing IP portfolios, involved in patent litigation and validation and patent prosecution. I mean, I breathe IP, and so I love it. But I wanted something a little bit different, but still associated with IP. So I reached out to Rich and I said, Rich, what can you do for me? And Rich said, I have the right thing. So Rich said, Rhonda, let's talk about product innovation. Let's talk about launching $1 million brands in the market and e-commerce. And Rich told me, mentioned Rick and Jason, which are two geniuses and which are very important people. So I was surprised when they joined. So I really appreciate that I have these three colleagues of mine, US colleagues, who will welcome us and who will share, valuable knowledge and information today. Just let me tell you about Rich a little bit. He's a good friend of mine, as I said. He founded his firm, Goldstein Patent Law, 26 years after graduated from law school. Rich has an extensive experience working with entrepreneurs and marketers, and he's the author of an American Bar Association Consumer's Guide to Obtaining a Patent. Rich is also a host of Innovations and Breakthroughs podcast. I have the pleasure of welcoming Rich Goldstein. Rich, the floor is yours, and from here you can continue. I should mention before I turn this over to Rich that our discussion today will not be the traditional slides and presentation. It will be interactive discussions. And as I mentioned, Rich, I don't think I took 10 minutes, so you guys have, I would say you can wrap up before 4:30. That's time. If you need more time, just let me know. Rich, it's my pleasure. You have the floor.
Thanks so much, Ron, and the pleasure really is mine. And I really appreciate you having me here. I mean, I appreciate your friendship, first of all. I mean, the time that I've known you, and you've been there when I had something that I needed your help with, and I appreciate that. And I think you understated yourself a little bit when you were describing kind of what you do. And the way I relate to you and the way I describe you to other people is that you're a guy who travels the world to meet clients. I mean, you spend a fair amount of time on the road. Very unusual in this field that you go out and you see clients, you spend the day with them, you problem solve with them. And for you, it's all about relationships. And it's a rare thing in this field. And I think that's part of our connecting point is that you're about relationships, and so am I. And, and so you've contributed an awful lot to the panels discussions that I've had you on at AIPLA and in other places. So thank you for that again. And yes, so Rana, like when you contacted me and you said, hey, let's do something great for my audience. I mean, it's clear that you care about these people. Everyone who's here on this webinar, everyone who's attending is very important to you, Rana, and very important to Daniel Law. And so, Ron and I mused about what we could do to deliver tremendous value to all of you. And so I'm committed to doing that. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about product innovation today. We're going to talk about how to scale your products online using e-commerce. And so I brought these two world-class experts with me that I'm going to introduce you to in a moment. Both of them have been on my podcast, and you're going to love what they have to share. So let me outline a bit of what we're going to cover here in the next, let's say, hour and 20 minutes. So first of all, when we think about innovating products, when we think about launching them into the world and scaling them, there are different stages. We're going to discuss each one of them. So the first stage is the idea itself. So you identify a product that you want to sell, or you find a market need. In some way, you generate an idea. And that idea could be about the type of product. It could be about a unique structure or a unique feature for an existing product, or it could be unique branding. But then second is you look at IP, you look at intellectual property. So the second thing we're going to talk about is the role that IP is going to play in the process of innovation. How does it help your success with your product when you protect your products and brands with IP? Third thing we're going to talk about is how do you validate your idea? How do you make sure you're on the right path? Make sure that what you're going to sell is what people want. Fourth, we're going to talk about how you market it. How do you get the message out to the world about what your product is and why they should buy it? And then next, fifth is scaling. Scaling is really how you strategically grow your product from its initial success. So you've seen some initial success at a certain level and you want to make it bigger. And usually this is about advertising. And so the key to this stage is about knowing when and how to invest in advertising. And all along the way and through this process, we're going to talk about e-commerce. And perhaps many of you have sold products through traditional channels or advertised it using traditional media. But e-commerce may be new to you. And if it is, you probably see opportunities for your business by selling your products online. But e-commerce also has some real tricks to it that can make the difference between success and failure. And we're going to talk about that too. And so then now, speaking of e-commerce, I'd like to introduce the first of our guests, which is Jason Boyce. And he's a true expert in e-commerce. Jason's an entrepreneur. He's an e-commerce pioneer. He's been selling products online since 2002. He was among the first third-party sellers on Amazon in 2003. That is like once Amazon said, well, maybe we don't need to sell every product we sell. Maybe we can get other people to sell on our platform. He was one of the first people invited to do that. And so now he's recognized as a top expert on Amazon, and he's a leading advocate for Amazon third-party sellers. And as a top seller for nearly 20 years, he's accumulated an extraordinary depth of experience and a real-life understanding of how to succeed on Amazon.com. These days, he works with brands to help them scale online through his company, Avenue 7 Media. So really my honor to welcome Jason. Jason, welcome.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Rana. It's my pleasure, my honor to be here with you guys today.
Great. And so let's just talk a little bit about your background and that early part there. So you started in e-commerce, selling products online in 2002. I mean, what were you selling and what was that like?
Well, it was a little bit like the Wild West. 2002 was after the dot-com bubble. For those of you who remember sort of that late 90s period where your neighbor came up with an idea for a dot-com company, and before you know it, it had a $500 million valuation, and then that bubble burst. And so ironically, when I had just left the Marines and my brothers and I decided to start an e-commerce business, when we told everyone that we were going to start an e-commerce business, everyone was like, what are you talking about? Because the e-commerce bubble burst. There's nothing's going to happen to this. It was a joke. And we thought, well, we have a feeling that the e-commerce is going to be around for a while. So we started a business. Our first business was superduperhoops.com, where we were selling basketball hoops online. And we were working with a company named Overture that was a pioneer in pay-per-click advertising. They had a small office in Pasadena, and I'm from LA, and I was working out of LA, and we would go down and meet these guys at Overture, and they taught us how to drive traffic to our website for a nickel a click. And so we had really good
nickel a click.
A nickel
Let
a
that
click.
sink in for a moment.
Rich, those were the days. Those were the days. And so we were able to build a really nice business. We got great representation on all of the websites, so the search engines of the time. And then a year later, Amazon called us and they said, hey, we want you guys are having a lot of success online selling your basketball products. We'd like you to sell your products on Amazon. And I said, again, what are you talking about? You guys sell books. And that's how long ago, I'm dating myself, right? That's how long ago it was. In the early days, that's how they started selling books. They first launched a clothing marketplace. It didn't go well. And then a guy picked up the phone and called me and asked me to sell my hoops on Amazon. And I've been involved with Amazon on their marketplace since then. And Rich, I've made every mistake you can make and learned from it and developed a repeatable process that we now share with our clients to help them succeed on Amazon.
Yeah, that's really amazing, and I mean, on a lot of levels, including that they actually reached out to you. I mean, these days, I mean, people are begging to get Amazon's attention for any issue, and they actually called you and said, "Hey, can you come sell over here?"
Yeah,
So,
Rich, that's the most amazing thing. People will say, "You mean they actually picked up a telephone and called you?"
right. Right, exactly. So that's awesome, and it's really great to have you here and add to this conversation all those experiences.
Thank you.
Um, and so I'd also like to introduce Rick. So Rick Cesari is our other guest, and he's a direct response marketing expert. He's the genius behind billion-dollar brands that are household brands in the U.S. and many internationally as well. Things like Sonicare, OxyClean, the George Foreman Grill, the Rug Doctor, and GoPro Camera. He is the author of 3 previous books. One is titled Buy Now. Another one is Building Billion-Dollar Brands. And then the third is Video Persuasion. And now, together with Jason Boyce, he is co-authoring an upcoming book, which is entitled The Amazon Jungle, a seller's survival guide for thriving on the world's most perilous e-commerce platform. And it's fun. Down in Brazil, you guys know the Amazon, right? And the perils of the Amazon. I don't know how often you venture out there, but this book is drawing a parallel to from those perils that you might actually experience in Brazil, in the Amazon, to the world of Amazon.com if you're going to venture out and sell your products on there. So I think that's a apropos comparison and title for what they have coming next. So Rick, so many places we could start with so many interesting experiences and household brands you've launched. But I think the thing that everyone is wondering about, I mean, what everyone wonders about is the George Foreman grill. I mean, it's sometimes called the George Foreman lean, mean, fat grilling machine, and it's sold 100 million units. Reportedly, it's earned George Foreman $200 million just for pitching this grill on TV. But he didn't invent it. So I'm curious, burning question, how did George Foreman end up selling grills?
That's a great question. And first, I just want to say thank you to Rana for having us on, and Rich and Jason. It's going to be a fun and informative webinar today. So I'm really looking forward to it. But to answer your question, Rich, about the George Foreman grill, it actually started out as a different product. It was basically a product that was designed, it was called the Fajita Express, and it was designed as a way, the reason it was tilted was that the idea was you'd put it on your edge of your table, you'd cook hamburger meat in it, and the idea was you could scrape the hamburger meat into your taco shell. And needless to say, that product didn't sell very much. I started working with Sultan Housewares, which owned the product. They had bought a previous company of mine called the Juice Man, and I was helping them with the marketing. And it just kind of, at the same time, George Foreman had just won the heavyweight championship of the world for the second time. He was 46 years old. It was a great story. And he was looking for products to endorse. And he was kind of famous. He was really heavy for the second time around. And he was famous kind of for eating hamburgers. So we thought he'd be a good spokesperson for the product. And so we combined those two, the product, and repositioned it as you mentioned it earlier, the lean, mean, fat reducing grilling machine, and it knocks out the fat was the tagline. And that product just took off. And just to update your numbers, I think they've sold over 120 million units since it's been introduced. And yes, it did make George a multi-millionaire in the process. So really fantastic success story.
Yeah, no, really, pretty amazing, and lots of other successes in there too, Rick. And I guess as we go through the different steps of innovation we're going to talk about, I'm sure many of those stories will come up. So, Rick, I really appreciate you being here. So yeah, let's start talking about product innovation. Now, I guess the first question is, where do you start? You start with an idea for a product or with a market or niche? And I'll toss it over to Jason.
Well, that's a really good question, and it can depend on what experience you as the entrepreneur bring to the table. Um, we mentioned, we have a whole chapter on this in our upcoming book. Um, you can really start by digging deep into your personal experience. You know, perhaps you worked at a retail chain store where you sold a product and you got to learn everything about the product when you were growing up and you know this product, or you are a consumer of a product that you like but it's not quite there, and every time you buy this product you think, boy, if it could just be a little bit better, I would be so much happier as a consumer. Other times things just sort of fall on your lap. You know, when we started selling basketball hoops, the reason we did that is because we were huge Laker fans, you know, growing up in LA, and we always played basketball every weekend together. And, you know, we had bought a basketball hoop at like the local sporting goods store, and I had a little Volkswagen Golf, and we bought this thing. As soon as I bought it in the store, I went, oh no, how do I get this home? How do we get this to the home? Because it was this huge product and I couldn't strap it on top of my Volkswagen Golf and drive it home. So we had to, you know, we had to hire somebody with a truck to come pick it up for us and deliver it. And we're like, this is crazy. Why don't we start a company and sell these hoops and have them delivered to the home? And then, you know, we can even connect the consumer with someone to put it together for them, or to install it if it's an in-ground system. And so that's kind of how we just decided to sell basketball hoops first. And then the other thing that we liked to do on weekends is during family time is played games. And we played ping pong and cribbage and, you know, foosball, you name it. And we loved those games, and we became close as a family by playing them. So we thought, well, we also want to make great products and bring those to the general public so that they can come close as a family unit as well in these sort of old school games. And so that's kind of how we came up with our name. But I talk to entrepreneurs every day, and I love hearing their story about how they got involved in selling products. And we talk about a number of them in our book as well. And so having some sort of interest, some sort of connection to a product is a great starting point, I think. I mean, would you agree with that, Rick?
Yeah, I want to second what Jason's saying. One of the most successful businesses I had was called Trillium Health Products, and we marketed the Juice Man juicer and the Bread Man bread machine. And that Juice Man juicer came about because I was very passionate about health and nutrition, and I was drinking fresh juices in my daily lifestyle. And I looked at the marketplace and saw that the machines that were being marketed at the time, the people were marketing them as a kitchen appliance. And so we kind of took a Juice Man, which wasn't a juicer, which wasn't an original product, and we turned the marketing around to market it as a health product. And that was what made us unique and different, and enabled that business to grow very quickly. So I think having a passion and experience with a product is very important to creating and launching a successful product into the marketplace.
Great. And on that note too, Rick, I'm curious about USP, the unique selling proposition. And so like at this early stage of ideation, you know, tell us about the role of a USP and really what that does for establishing that you have an idea that might have legs.
Yeah, that's a great question. And Jason and I spend countless hours talking about this. You know, Jason mentioned he's been selling on Amazon for many, many years. And Amazon is a place where if you don't differentiate your products, you become a commodity. And then, you know, you have a race to the bottom. Everybody markets just based on price. So I've always approached marketing from the standpoint of looking for products or services that could be very unique, and that you could build, you know, the saying, build a moat around the castle to keep people out. And you can do that, you know, through using IP. And I'll give you a couple just real simple examples. You know, the Sonicare toothbrush, they were able to use the IP to basically the Sonic technology, and that was the differentiator on that product. But having a USP is for me one of the very first things I look at on a product to see if I can build it into a 5 million, a 10 million, $100 million product. Because if you aren't different than the other products out there, you're just a commodity.
Absolutely. I'm not sure if, did I say that USP was unique selling proposition? I'm
You
not
did.
sure if I just threw the acronym out there or if I defined it, but that's what we're talking about, is a unique selling proposition. And I mean, that's a great example right there. And you also segued us into the next topic, which has to do with IP and the role that IP plays in product innovation. So, I mean, you mentioned an example there with Sonicare and how they found some aspect of the technology was protectable. And I think that they talk about cleaning beyond the bristles, where, I mean, conventional brushes, they physically clean things using the bristles, and they had this notion of cleaning beyond the bristles, and they patented certain technology that helped establish the uniqueness of their product. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. And the reason that's important, and both Rich and Rana, you guys know this, you deal with this every single day. It is a way to protect yourself. Because think about if you're launching a new toothbrush into a category that's dominated by giant companies like Braun. If you first of all, if you don't have something that's unique, and then you're able to protect it, your chances of success aren't as great. And so the ability of Sonicare to have a unique selling proposition and then also protect that through patents was the reason that they were able to have such tremendous growth, along with some of the marketing we did. And that holds true. You mentioned some of the other brands. Take the GoPro cameras, a more recent example, that grew to $1 billion in 8 years. Camera technology, they didn't invent new camera technology. There were big camera companies out there, Panasonic, Sony. But what GoPro did was that they invented mounts that allowed people to use the camera while they were doing sports. And that was how they launched that product and differentiated it from the competition, and also protected it while they were able to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And so then that they were able to leverage that technology, whatever they patented with regard to the mounts, to help them kind of maintain their competitive advantage. And also there's the branding too, right? I mean, so all of it's surrounding branding, which has to do with trademarks. And so establishing the branding in even the marketing slogans around these phrases and things, and like cleaning beyond the bristles, or with the ones that GoPro used to promote its product out there to adventurers or people that are into extreme sports. And actually, Jason, I mean, when we talk about the trademarks, I know that you had a interesting experience with that, where you built a brand around Super Duper Hoops, and then I think the trademark issue was one of the reasons why I guess you moved on from that.
We loved that name. We loved that name, and we wish we could have kept it. But we found a good IP attorney like yourself, and we sat down and said, "Hey, how can we protect this?" And this was a big lawyer out of Los Angeles, who had multinational clients, enormous clients. He says, "I got good news for you, and I have bad news for you. The good news is we can get your mark registered. The bad news is you'll be my biggest client." And we were a small guy. We were doing, I think, 7 figures a year at the time, and we didn't have that kind of budget to defend a name like Super Duper Hoops, because that's what we would have to do. We would spend all of my time just trying to defend the name, because it was very descriptive, and it was easy to get used. So we changed to a name that was a shorter name that was our own, and we made it up. Dazity was the name. And we got registered quickly, and we were able to get brand registry. And as part of a successful strategy on Amazon as it relates to IP, there's really 2 areas. Number one is the trademark. The registered trademark certificate has become critical to your success on Amazon now. You've got to have one. And what this will allow you to have is a program called brand registry. And if you are a brand registered seller with a registered trademark certificate on Amazon, you really have many more opportunities to not only put your brand in the best possible light by doing things like adding videos, you can add additional branding content, you can have your own brand store on Amazon, which is called your, your store within Amazon, your e-commerce store on Amazon. And you can, it also gives you a little bit more of a leg to stand on to protect your brand name on Amazon. And if you don't have that, you're really limited, because you're competing against hundreds of thousands of other sellers who are brand registered. So it's become really critical. And then back to the patents, there are a lot of really effective strategies around design patents. And we had several design patents with our very commoditized products, which were game tables, because the design patent's a little easier to get, and it's a lot less expensive than some of the, forgive me if I get this, I'm talking to the experts here, the name of the mechanical patents, right? Sort of the functional
utility patent.
Utility, I knew I was going to get that
Utility
wrong. But it's a little easier to get than those, and you can really help protect your listings, and your listings are everything on the Amazon platform. And so when we started selling things like home rec, we took a look at our customers, right? So I'm mixing up the first topic and the second topic a little bit here, Rich, but we ran a list of all of our customers, and we identified what the demographics of our customer base were. And here, myself and my three brothers were like, the people that are buying this are guys, right? They're guys that are building a man cave in their house. So all of our materials, all of our marketing was targeted towards men. Well, we got a rude awakening when we ran our customer list through one of the list brokers, and they came back and they showed us all the demographics makeup of our customers. And who was the biggest customer group? Moms were buying our product, and we're like, why didn't we think of this? This is so dumb. And so when we looked at, we're talking about Amazon or online, you're talking about search results page. When we did a search for a foosball table, or we did a search for air hockey table, football table in Brazil, right? We would see a certain look of designs, and they were a lot of the guys that had started in this industry were old billiard professional players that decided to start a business. And they were terrific pool players or game room guys, but they didn't have any kind of sense of style. And so all of them were very plain or very masculine, over the top masculine designs. And so when we got this customer information and we learned that the women were our biggest customer group, we went back to the design drawing board and we redesigned all of the looks and all of the features of all of our tables to be more gender neutral and more feminine looking. And we also spent a lot of time looking at the search results page and what colors really popped off of that screen. And so we had a lot of really gender neutral orange colors and sort of, some really beautiful bright colors that popped off that search results page. And we came up with our own unique looks. Even though the functions of the table were very similar across all the competitors, ours really stood out on the search results page, and they looked different, and they looked much more appealing to the moms and the families who were buying these for their children versus, some testosterone guy, right? And we went back and we got design patents for some of these, and it really helped us lay the foundation for a strong brand to grow on Amazon.
Absolutely. So yeah, so you mentioned design patents and the Amazon platform. A few things I'd like to highlight. So, I mean, there is conventional feeling within IP that design patents are less valuable, right? Conventionally, people will say that utility patents protect more of a concept, and so they're more valuable, and design patents are just for an appearance, and therefore they're less valuable because if someone changes the appearance, then it's not going to infringe the patent. And sometimes that's true, sometimes it's not. But here's the thing that most people don't know, and most IP lawyers don't even realize about Amazon, that design patents are more valuable on Amazon. And the reason is, as we know, utility patents are all about words. Utility patents are all about a description that describes the limits of what infringement or how infringement takes place. Design patents are all about the drawings. So now let's get really practical. What happens when you're on Amazon, you see a competitor that has the same product as yours and you want to shut them down? You can do something that's very simple to do on Amazon. It's called filing an IP complaint, where you say that listing, that's an infringement of my patent. But now let's look at what the situation if it's a utility patent versus a design patent. If it's a utility patent, then you're tasking the Amazon employee who doesn't have any real knowledge or experience in patents with understanding the words of your utility patent, understanding the scope of the utility patent. If it's a design patent instead, you make a complaint, they look at the pictures and they say, it looks pretty close to me, and then they'll shut down your competitive listing. So design patents have become very important on the Amazon platform because it's just an easier path to getting a competitor shut down, simply because you're dealing with people that don't really understand patents, but they know how to look at pictures.
Rich, I told you I made every mistake possible on Amazon and learned from it. I've been both on the forwarding and receiving end of this. So at one point we copied a little basketball hoop that was hooked on the back of a door, like as an internal little mini hoop, like a Nerf hoop almost.
Mm-hmm.
And we designed it. We copied it, really. There's no other way to put it. And we manufactured and we brought it into the market and started selling it and became a really top seller on Amazon. And guess what we received? A cease and desist letter saying that we were violating somebody's design patent. And that's how I learned about design patents, is by getting a cease and desist letter and learning from it. Yeah, exactly. It's an expensive lesson. Take my advice for you listeners. Listen to Rich. Don't learn it the way I did it.
Yeah, thanks. And so yeah, just in essence, then design patents can be quite valuable. And the other thing, though, that's true about Amazon, which makes design patents valuable, is that when people copy your product on Amazon, they don't get imaginative about it. They don't look at your product and say, that's a cool idea, let's design our own. They basically just say, well, let's get 10,000 of these manufactured exactly like that. So if you have a design patent, you don't even have to worry about, well, it's not going to look exactly the same. It is going to look exactly the same because they're not going to even try to make it look different. And so your design patent will be effective to shut down that competitor. So,
sorry to interrupt, Rich. Just to tag on to something that Rick said about building your moat. Amazon is aggressively recruiting Chinese factories to sell direct, which can cut out a lot of brands, right? And so if there's so much copying going on the platform. So if you really have designed a unique product that stands out on the search results page, that looks different and better than the competitors, and you protect it by calling, Rich and Rana and putting together some design patents and good trademarks, you have a leg to stand on, and you can knock some of those guys off of the search results page and really build that moat to protect yourself on the Amazon business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And by the way, in what you were describing before, the situation and figuring out your market, figuring out that it was really the moms that were buying the product, that's a great segue to the next topic, which is validating ideas. It's where you take the notion of what you think the public wants or who you think is buying your product, and you test it. You get to see what people really want. So, let me punt it over to Rick then and talk about how you go about validating your ideas and getting as close as possible to what people want.
Yeah, that's an important question, Rich. And again, I met Jason probably about 4 years ago now. I had given a talk at the Prosper Show for Amazon sellers. And at the time, I didn't know very much about Amazon. And Jason came up to me afterwards and we started meeting. We both lived in Seattle at the time, and we'd get together every week, and I would pick his brain about Amazon, and then he would pick my brain about direct-to-consumer marketing. And one of the things we found in common, we just approached it from a little bit different way, was that we both really value actual customer feedback as a way of endorsing a product or giving us feedback to make changes to a product. So a lot of the products that you mentioned earlier that I've been had some success with, I've always one of the first things I do when I start working with a product is reach out to existing customers, if there are any, and we'll send them an email and ask if we can do a short interview. And because I use video a lot, I'll usually video these interviews. And after talking to 10 or 15 people that have actually bought the product, I ask them, what they like about it, what they don't like about it, how do you hear about it, how do you use it? You start to see some trends develop that really can enable you to figure out the best way to market this to the public. So I have a lot of my success has relied heavily on feedback from authentic customers that I can then take and use as testimonials. Or if a product isn't working well in the marketplace, you can take that same feedback and use it to improve that product and get it to a point where it appeals to more people. And I know in talking to Jason that Jason kind of does the same thing, but uses Amazon reviews, which is another way of approaching it.
I'm just remembering back in those early coffee meetings we had on Friday morning, Rick, and how much fun that was, because the process that Rick described is exactly what we were doing on Amazon. It was just that the medium that we were using was different. So Rick was videoing these folks and interviewing them live and getting them on camera, both to use for marketing purposes, but also to learn more about the product and to zero in on the messaging. And we've been reading product ratings and reviews of our competitors and our own products, for a decade and a half. And when Rick shared his process, I was like, oh my gosh, that's what we do. But we don't interview anybody. We just go through and read, 1,000 different product reviews. And so if we back up to that original process and that original question that you said, Rich, how do you identify a product? And, Rick said it beautifully, something that you have some experience with or a passion for, you can take that product category or idea, and then you can, drop it in the search engine on Amazon or online and look and see the top search results for the best-selling items that pop up. And you can click on them. You don't even have to buy them. I mean, I would recommend it if you end up moving forward and your ideas are validated, but you can read all of those negative. I always start with the negative product reviews. I want to know what the customers don't like about the product. And it's the same whether it's my own product or a competitor's. But if I can identify really good selling products that have some fundamental problems, I can fix that problem during my own design process and make a better product, launch it on Amazon, and not only will the product be better, I'll use it in my marketing materials, and I'll talk about the benefits of this product, and so that when the customers got 4 or 5 different tabs open on their browser and they're looking at 4 or 5 different products, and they go through the process that I'm going through and reading negative reviews, and they click on my product, they'll see, oh, these guys have solved that problem. I'm going to buy it from these guys. So that's one part of the validation is finding products that are good selling. There's a huge market for it, but there's areas of opportunity to improve the product. That's one way to differentiate. The other thing and part of the validation process on Amazon, which is great, there's this old $9.99 cart trick that we used to use spreadsheets for. And now there are lots of Chrome extension software tools out there. Jungle Scout is one of them. Helium 10 is another one, although my personal preference is Jungle Scout. And we built our own software years ago that
well,
we use
Helium 10 is my client, so that's my preference.
Okay, great. Helium 10 works. That works for me.
They're the ones we use.
I use their extension also, so good for you. And so what that will do is I'm going to just briefly describe the little $9.99 checkout trick. So you go to it's in the book. Thank you, Rick. It's definitely in the book. So you drop a competitor's product into the checkout, and you add 999 units and hit add to cart. Now, nobody carries 999 units in Amazon. And Amazon will kick back and say, we're sorry, we don't have that quantity. And the field will update to the quantity that's available. So instead of 999, it'll say you can buy 200 today. Great. Now I have a baseline for inventory available for this product. I walk away, I come back the next day and I type in the same product, I pull it up and I enter 999 units. And then today I see that there's only not 200, there's 180 units left. So now I know from yesterday till today, these guys sold 20 units in one day. If I continue that process for 3 or 4 more days, I can extrapolate the quantity sold every month, multiply that by the retail price, and now I know how much my competitors on Amazon are selling. So this is huge amount of information. It's when I'm talking to new or potential clients, it's one of the first things I do. And Rick and I share a lot of clients and a lot of inventors.
Oh yeah.
And Rick will send me emails all week saying, hey, what do you think about this one?
Check out this product. How big is the market? How many are they selling?
And I'll go in and I'll say, you know, this product is doing $1,000 a month. Is it really worth your investment? Probably not. But I also run into products that are doing $10 million a month, $2 million a month, $600,000 a month. And that's where they get really interesting. Because if we can apply the methods that I learned from Rick and my experience on Amazon and create amazing listings and do the things that we do to have success on Amazon, you know, clients can really have exponential growth. But it all starts back to your original question, Rich. How do you validate your idea? Check out the reviews and check out to make sure there's already a market. There's already consumer demand on Amazon for that product that you're passionate about making.
Great. And with the reviews, you hinted on something that you mentioned when we did the podcast. You had said that that your product solution is in the bad reviews. So do you want to expand on that?
Yeah, I think the problem identification is in the bad reviews. So I'll give you an example. I'll use one of my old products, an air hockey table. So when we first launched our own air hockey table, we knew very little about air hockey tables. We just knew it was fun. And so we identified a factory. We started working with them. We had some samples sent. And then, we played with the sample. And I had read probably hundreds, maybe even thousands of negative reviews for all of the air hockey tables on Amazon, the competitors' air hockey tables. And a theme popped up on almost every one of these. Table has dead spots. Well, what does that mean? So an air hockey table blows air up and it lifts the puck off of a cushion of air, and that's how it flies, across the table, and that's how you play the game of air hockey. Well, if the airflow isn't quite right on one section of the table, instead of the puck gliding smoothly, it stops and it dies. So that's called the dead spot on an air hockey table. So we were like, well, look, if we're going to launch an air hockey table, first of all, we need to make it look cool to moms, right? Because we had identified that market. But we really need to work with engineers and the factory to make sure that there are 0 dead spots on our air hockey table, because we don't want that negative review. And sure enough, we launched this thing and it became a bestseller fast. And we got a ton of great reviews, and not one of those reviews was a negative review about dead spots. So that's an example. So you identify a theme across multiple competitors' products, and then you solve it. And, I'm not an engineer, and, I've said this before, I'm no Steve Jobs. I can't think of what people need before they know they need it. But by seeing what problems exist, you can work with smart people to solve them on your own products. And it's just a great way to innovate.
It works into the marketing too, because you can market from the standpoint of, we have a table with no dead spots.
Exactly.
You're differentiating yourself from the competitors.
Absolutely. And that's a great segue to the next topic, which is about marketing messaging and telling the world about what you've got. And so, Rick, I know, one of the things that made GoPro as successful as it became was the marketing campaign. So tell me a bit about that marketing campaign and how it really hit the consumer exactly where they needed to be to get them to buy GoPro.
Yeah, so the GoPro campaign was a real fun one, obviously, because you're dealing with an action camera and you're dealing with real exciting video footage You know, that product is a really good example of, I like to talk to people when they're looking at products and categories. There's a real good book out there called The Blue Ocean Strategy. And I mentioned earlier, there were a lot of other large camera companies out there, but none of them were working in the niche of action cameras. So GoPro was able to come up with a product where they had what we call, quote unquote, the blue ocean. It was wide open. Nobody else was in that category. And basically what they did was really fascinating. The fact that it was a camera enabled us, obviously, to use a lot of user-generated footage. And so we started marketing it to the people that were the extreme athletes, the snowboarders, the skiers, the mountain bikers, the people that jump off the cliffs in the squirrel suits, I call them. And that was an area where we were able to really carve a niche, build a foundation. And then as the business started to grow, we said, okay, what kind of niche do we want to go after next? Or how do we expand the business? And so then we'd say, well, maybe we can use this camera besides for action photos, we can use it for family photos. So we started basically making more of the advertising, showing video of people taking pictures of their pets or people taking pictures of their family or video of their family. And it was just a natural progression to start with that niche that no one else was in, dominate that, and then expand outwards.
Got it. And what do you think was the messaging that was key to that tied all that together?
Yeah, and you mentioned this a little bit earlier about the different taglines. You know, the George Foreman grill is, you know, knock out the fat. Sonicare is clean beyond the bristles. OxyClean is the power of bleach but safe. And the GoPro tagline or logo was be a hero. So most cameras up to this point pointed away from you and took pictures of the other person. Here was a camera that basically would point back at yourself, and you could make yourself the hero of your own story. And it basically was simultaneously came out at the same time the whole selfie boom and social media was coming out. So the ability of the camera to make yourself the hero of your own story was one of the reasons that product took off.
That's so interesting. And I guess that's the name of their product line too, is Hero. It's like Hero, Hero 2, Hero 3. Yeah. So, you know, I mean, I guess that's a notion of a really simple concept that you can build the entire campaign around. It's like people can look for an elaborate message, but sometimes it's as simple as that the camera makes you the hero, and that's what appeals then to the consumer wanting to be the hero of this story.
You know, Rich, I've learned, Rick is my teacher with this branding and marketing messaging, and I have learned so much from him and continue to when it comes to messaging. I just want to share sort of a transformation that happened in my previous business as an Amazon seller after starting to sit at Rick's feet and learn about these great messages. And you know, it starts with, I will never forget the minute he told me this, features tell, benefits sell. It was sort of this aha moment for me at the time.
Let's just slow that down for a moment. So features tell, benefits sell.
Benefits sell.
The distinction there is being made with between how people often try to promote the features of a product, like it's got, you know, a 2x zoom lens, or it has, you know, 120 minutes of video capacity. Those are features versus benefits.
Features are great, but they're secondary. Right. It's the second part of the message, right? The most important critical piece. And on Amazon, even to this day, there are millions of products that are, it looks like a manufacturer's spec sheet, specification sheet, right? It's talking about, you know, what it's made of exactly. I'm going to go back to the air hockey table, right? Example. And so, you know, before I met Rick, we had this air hockey table listing. It didn't have any dead spots, mind you, because we had fixed that. But we were talking about the dimensions and the weight and the cubic feet per minute that gets blown out of the blowers, and, you know, the size of the legs and the thickness of the legs and the height of the table, all sort of important things. But after meeting Rick and sort of sort of embracing the features tell, benefits sell idea, we went back to the drawing board and we said, what's the end result? What do we hope the customer gets when they buy this table?
And those are the benefits.
And those are the benefits. And we
Mm-hmm.
envisioned back at home when my brothers and I were playing foosball. It wasn't about the table. It was about being together with my family, right? It was spending quality time. Bringing friends and family together became the message that we put forward with our Harville brand of products. And, you know, we bypassed all of the details, all the features, and we hit them hard with, when you get this, you are going to get more family time, right? That's the real benefit of the product. The end consumer, very few people care about the cubic meters of airflow that comes through the doggone thing, as long as there's no dead spots, right? But that message of, yes, this is why I need this product, not want, this is why I need this product, so I can get more time with my loved ones and my friends. And, you know, it goes back, I love that hero message, because at the end of the day, when you're putting together your marketing messaging for a product or for a brand, you need to put your customer at the center of that narrative. What is it that you hope that they get that's going to get them to open up their wallet and enter that credit card number? And it's those end results. It's the benefits. It's the, you know, happy living, easier living, healthier living, all of those kinds of things. And, you know, I can see Rick smiling. He's taught me all of this. I'm taking this right. I'm taking it right from your playbook, Rick.
You have done well, Grass.
Words in marketing are free and you.
Free and you. That's right.
Yeah, let me just give you a real quick thing, just, and then we can move on from features and benefits. But I like, you know, just to show you how powerful it is. When we introduced the Juice Man Juicer, I mentioned earlier that other companies like Braun and Krups, they were the big German engineering companies and they dominated the market, but they were selling it based on the features. They said, we have a stainless steel precision blade and a 0.5 horsepower powerful motor and dishwasher safe plastic. And when we came in with the Juice Man Juicer, we said, if you drink the juice from this juicer, you'll have more energy, you'll live longer, your immune system will be stronger, you won't get sick. And we marketed the health benefits, and that, you know, to show you how successful that company grew from 0 to 75 million in a little over 4 years. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a new product if you change the way it's marketed. And just to kind of carry this over a little bit to Jason's territory on Amazon, you know, when you look at the individual product listings, and Amazon lets you put up, like, you know, I don't know, 5, 6, 8 pictures of it. Most of them are just very boring pictures. And Jason and I like to look at the product listings, the little pictures you put up, and we like to think of it in terms like every time you put an image up of your product, think of it as an individual magazine ad. That every picture should tell a story about what that product is going to do for you. The other part of that is people put up just the images. You can put graphics on those images to call out the benefits. And these are 2 little tips that if you just implement those right away, both your sales and conversions will increase on Amazon.
Great, thank you. I think before we move on to the next area about scaling, I'd like to answer one of the questions from the audience, which I think is more in the realm of the things we've been talking about to this point, in terms of validating product ideas. So here's the questions. Jason commented that he used a certain market intelligence from the analysis of bad reviews about products already existing in the market, in which he intended to launch his product. So, you know, it says he used certain market intelligence from bad reviews. Then the question is, what other sources of information and intelligence should be considered when deciding to invest in a product or idea? Is a patent intelligence perspective on those technology gaps or opportunities also important?
Oh, I absolutely think that having your IP attorney on speed dial as you're going through this process is really useful. You know, you might start with your passion, start with your product, validate it by checking to see what the problems in the marketplace for your product are first. Then potentially have some conversations with your engineers or your factory to see if it's a solvable problem. Most of the case, 90% of the time, the answer to that question is going to be yes. If you think that your factory, your manufacturer can solve this problem by developing a new way of making this product, a better way of making this product, and you can land it at a cost that allows you to make money on it, the next call should be your attorney and say, hey, we just came up with this new idea to solve this existing problem in the marketplace. Can we patent anything in here? Is there anything that we can protect here? I would do that. I did that with every product I ever developed, and I've developed hundreds of products.
Yeah, let me just add on a little bit to what Jason said. We mentioned this yesterday. We were together having a conversation, but the two most often asked questions by the investors to the inventors on Shark Tank is, does the product have a patent? And then also the second question they ask is, what about margin? And the margin is, they always ask, what does it cost you to build it, and what can you sell it for? And that's important because you'll see when we'll probably start talking a little bit about scaling and advertising. If a product doesn't have enough margin in it, there's no way you can build that into a big business. So those are two of the most important things to look at, in addition to the other things we've been talking about today.
And Rich, for your guests, I can share with you some numbers to consider if they're considering a product on Amazon. And there's a lot of money goes to Amazon when you list and sell on Amazon. There's a seller fee that's typically 15% of the sale, and you need to pay for advertising to drive traffic to your listing on Amazon now. And then typically, if it's a small product, you're using Amazon as a warehouse and as a fulfillment center as well. And so if you're doing your competitor research, aside from looking at those bad reviews, identify what the market retail prices are for some of what are your competitors selling it at? If you can come back, and there's two parts to this response I'm leaving you now. If you can come back and say, I can land this product for 25% of the retail value that the market is right now, then I can make money on this product. So a 25% landed cost is a really good target. You can't always do that, but it's not terrible. Now, there's a lot of really cheap factory product that's sort of flooding the market on Amazon right now. So it's really hard to compete with them on price. But most of those listings that you see where it's the lowest price are items that are listing features, not benefits. They're not doing the things that Rick just rattled off that are so important to the listing. That listing is your retail store, right? You got to make sure that the lights are bright, that the floors are clean, right? That the staff are smiling, and you got to make sure that everything's just right to make for a warm purchasing environment. And these low-cost leaders many times don't do that. So with a good IP strategy, with a strong brand name, with some design patents that differentiate and look more premium in the market, you can command a higher retail price even than what you're seeing in some of the top sellers. I take clients on all the time who are not the low price leaders, and they're top 10, top 5 bestsellers in their search results page or their category. And it's because they built that moat using IP, using branding, using marketing, building a better mousetrap, and they can be profitable. So you can do those things when you build that moat.
Great, excellent. And we'll talk a bit more about that, about e-commerce, second topic from now. And I just want to address one of the things you said before, well, both of you said about having that connection between the market and the IP. The way I like to look at it is that you want to find an overlap. You want to find an overlap between the thing about your product that makes it patentable and the thing that the market wants, needs, and demands. So a lot of times, if you're conceiving of a new product, it might have a feature that you think would be awesome, but it turns out that that feature is not patentable. Other times, you might be conceiving of a product that has something that's really patentable, but the market doesn't care about that. And I think that's too often the trap, is that people will see that I can get a patent on this combination of features. But if the market is not demanding that combination of features, if the market is not saying, unless the product has that, I don't want it, then it might not be a good candidate for patenting. So in general, that's what you want, is an overlap between the two. So you devised a stapler that has a new type of release lever. And if it turns out that you could patent that, that's awesome. But is the market going to demand that release lever? Are they going to not be interested in any other product that doesn't have it, so that your competitors will say, well, unless we can make this, we don't want to sell staplers. Unless we can copy this feature, but oh, look, they have a patent on that release lever, we can't do that. That's the magic you're looking for, the overlap between what's patentable and what's marketable.
That's a great point, Rich. I have an actual example. I had a direct-to-consumer marketing agency for like 25 years. And a few years ago, a potential client brought me this product. He was an engineer. And the problem that they were solving was that his wife didn't like twirling up the hose, the garden hose, after she got done with it. So being an engineer, he invented this product that cost like $300, and it would automatically pull the hose back in. And obviously it was a problem that was being solved, but it was too expensive solution, even though he had patented the product. Well, a couple of years later, somebody came out with those hoses that basically, I forget the name of them, but they automatically retract, and they cost like $19 for a hose. So that was an example of the product solving the problem, but also being marketable at the same time from the standpoint of being the right price point.
Right. Excellent. Excellent. Okay, so then let's move on to scaling. So then now you've got a product out there, you've got something which has achieved a certain level of success, and you want to grow the company. You want to expand it beyond, let's say, a $1 million product to maybe a $10 million or $50 million product. And this is where a bit of the science comes in, the advertising science. So, Rick, so first, from your perspective, how do you approach this problem of scaling, knowing how much to spend, how to invest appropriately in growing a product?
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, every one of the products we've been talking about today, and every new business that I consult with, you have to, my whole background is in direct response marketing, and direct response marketing is simply that you're measuring every ad dollar that you spend. And in order to scale any business, I know, people read all the time, you can use, organic social media, you don't have to pay any money. But I've always had success scaling businesses by finding a paid advertising program that you could scale. And it's as simple as a very simple formula I talk about all the time, is that if you put $1 into your advertising, you're looking to get $2 back in return in gross revenue. And that doesn't matter. Now, people have been doing that going back, way back, in newspaper ads. They've been doing it on the radio. They've been doing it on TV. I had a lot of my success using direct response TV marketing, but now you can do that through the social ad channels like Facebook and Instagram. And it's really a matter of understanding direct response marketing and being able to measure the ad dollars you spend. And if you can create a campaign that enables you to deliver the $2, and hopefully you can get more for every dollar you spend in advertising, then it becomes a funnel where you just start putting money in the front end and revenue out the back end, and your sales will start to grow like that. And again, another thing that Jason and I had in common, he'll tell you about doing that same type of thing on Amazon. We use a term when we used to do television marketing called the media efficiency ratio, which basically is you measure your ad dollars versus your total sales. And again, you're looking for a minimum of a 2-to-1 ratio in order to be successful in doing that.
Yeah, and then back to your original. It's amazing how many similarities in process with a different. The details are different that Rick and I have run across over the years on Amazon and in his TV world as well, and both online. But the really important piece of scaling your product is still king, right? Having a great product that has a better quality or better price or some combination of or better, cooler looking is still really important. And that's one of the reasons I really like Amazon, because you get a lot of feedback. And let's say you place one container order and you sell 1,000 units, your customers are going to give you some feedback. You're going to improve on your product the next time you reorder inventory, right? So if you go through that process, reading your bad reviews, improving things that your customers don't like about your product, and every time you reorder inventory, you're making a little bit better, eventually you're going to have a near perfect product. Now, once you get the near perfect product, that's when you call Rick. Rick, let's put a TV ad campaign together, right? Let's put an e-commerce marketing ad campaign together. And the process that he described also works on Amazon. I don't think that Amazon should be your only sales channel, but I think it should be one of your first. And it's because there's so many folks that will leave reviews on that platform. There's so many eyeballs. It has half of the online market share in the United States, half. Walmart.com is the next largest online marketplace. They have 5% online market share. So that gives you an idea of how many customers you can get to the Amazon platform. Use this process to perfect your product. But as it relates, sort of the process that Rick described as it relates on Amazon, the MER metric that we use is called tacos. And it's a ad cost of sales from your total Amazon sales. So unfortunately, because there are so many fees associated with selling a product on Amazon, the 2-to-1 ratio doesn't work. But for every dollar that you spend on Amazon ads to drive Amazon traffic to your listing to sell your product, if you can get a $3 or $4 or even $5 sale for every $1 that you spend on Amazon ads, and you continue to make that spend, that's a really good ratio on that platform. Remember, on Amazon, you got to give them 15% of every sale, right? You got to give them, another percentage, potentially anywhere from 7 or 8% to 15% for shipping and fulfillment, and then you have to spend some money, good, 10 to 30% on ads to drive traffic. So that's a little bit different ratio and different language, but the exact same process that Rick described.
Yeah, and the point being, Rich, is in order to scale businesses, again, social media is important, PR is important. There's lots of different marketing things, but the businesses that really take off like a rocket ship and can grow to, 10 million, 100 million, even $1 billion, they've figured out some type of paid advertising program that they can repeat and just put more money into. And then all those other types of marketing are just things that need to be done along the way.
Yep, exactly. The principle is that if you can spend $1 and then get $10 in revenue, why not spend 10 million to get 100 million in revenue?
Exactly.
So it's like,
exactly.
Sometimes they call it a crank, something that you can just crank, and the energy that you put in always gives you a greater output. So yeah, and that's also a great segue to, the final topic that we'll talk about for the rest of this time is e-commerce. And you were, Jason, you were laying the groundwork for how you'd allocate your cost expenditures for an Amazon campaign. And one of the things that you mentioned, and I guess the point of this last topic is to really look at some of the tricks to e-commerce. And one of the things you mentioned when we talked, I think it was on the podcast, was that if you were bringing a product to market 7 years ago, it's very different than today. Because right now, in particular, if you were putting a product on Amazon back then, you might just say, great, create a listing and grow it.
Those were the days. Those were the days, Rich.
Yeah, and exactly.
Those days are over.
Those days are long gone. But I think the point is that these days you need a marketing budget, because if you if you are going to launch a product on Amazon, unless you have money to put into pay-per-click to pay for traffic, you're not going to get any traffic to that page. So like, why don't you expand on that a bit?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Nobody, when you launch your product, no one is going to see it if you don't spend money to drive traffic to it. And you're not going to have any reviews when you launch. So you're not going to have the sort of the new brand equity built up with the product review ratings, right? So you have to have a budget. I mean, if I was starting a brand new brand, and we talk to clients that are bringing new products to market all the time, we tell them a couple of things. Number one, have your own e-commerce website. And there's sort of a laundry list of things that I recommend that they do for their e-commerce website, and launch on Amazon. And it's for all of the reasons that we have been talking about throughout, sort of the broadcast. And you also need to have a good contract CFO that puts together some runway, some cash for you to burn, because you are going to burn cash in order to get that new listing seen, to get it ranked, so that eventually when somebody searches a keyword for your product or for your product category, that your product shows up on the first page of search results. Now, if I was starting a brand new brand today, I would want a year of runway. I would want to be able to lose money for the first year, and because I would drive traffic both to my e-commerce website and I would drive traffic to Amazon. And I would go through that process of perfecting the product. And then, once I got a good foothold there, I'd call Rick and I'd say, hey, Rick, let's get on TV with this thing. But I would want to be, but realistically speaking, I'd get clients that come to me and say, we can lose money in the first 30 days. Okay, so we'll adjust. I can lose money for the first 90 days. Okay, we'll adjust. And we'll get ranking. The longer we have permission to not be profitable on every sale, the faster and the better rank we can get that listing ranked on the Amazon organic search results. Does that kind of make sense?
Yep.
Rich, I just want to echo a little bit what Jason's saying, and this is for any of the listeners right now to this webinar that maybe just are in retail or brick and mortar retail, and the advice if they were coming to Jason and I for advice on, how do we get online, we always tell them the same thing is we build an e-commerce website. It doesn't have to be expensive. And that's a place, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but there's a whole thing about content and providing content and information. And that's a great place to do it because you're a little bit limited on Amazon, what you can do. And at the same time, basically you're launching on Amazon. And, one of the things that's flip-flopped in the past before, Jason's mentioned TV a few times, you used to be able to launch products on TV, but now to me, that's like more of a phase 2. Let's build a website. Let's launch your product on Amazon, start generating some revenue, see what the market is saying. You've done some due diligence up to then. People like your product. Then you start doing your paid advertising on Amazon, and hopefully you can do some paid advertising on some of the other social media platforms. And that's the way nowadays we tell people to launch products. And if you had to choose one of those, just my own personal opinion, and you couldn't maybe had the funding to do it, I would start on Amazon first because it's a faster path to revenue than necessarily a standalone e-commerce site. But then very quickly you build out your e-commerce site as well.
Just to give a piece of evidence to what Rick is speaking to, we have clients all the time that run TV ads and they're on Amazon, and the offer that they make on TV ads is better than what the offer is on Amazon. But I know when they're running their TV ads and they don't have to tell me, because we see a huge spike in Amazon sales. Now, Amazon is the bottom of the funnel for every dollar of ad spend, I think, for when it comes to a product.
Yeah.
And so what we sort of anecdotally figured out, people are seeing the television ad campaign while they're sitting on their couch watching television. They're pulling up their phone, which is never more than a foot away from them, typing in the product on their Amazon Prime app. And many times they're buying it on Amazon because the convenience is so much easier than calling or going to a website and entering your credit card for the first time. And so Rick is 100% right. Getting on Amazon first, getting your e-commerce platform, get the bottom of the funnel foundation in place so that the next phase, when you're running those big TV campaigns and you're getting brand awareness and mind share out there, that you're capturing more of those sales that will happen as a result of that ad spend. It's a winning formula for folks that, you know, have a good budget, have a sort of a willingness and an understanding that they're not going to be profitable on day one, but can execute on this plan. It really works well.
And I'll add one last little tip to that, because it's a mistake I see startups make all the time. And it's the difference between doing brand advertising and direct response advertising. And I have a saying that I took from a mentor of mine, a guy named Dan Kennedy, who wrote the No BS Guide to Direct Marketing. He said, you don't brand to sell your product, you sell your products to build the brand. And every one of the products we mentioned earlier, Sonicare, George Foreman Grill, OxyClean, all those brands were built because of selling the product and getting it out into the hands of the consumer. And I see a lot of startup people spend a lot of money on branding, which doesn't generate revenue, and they should be spending that money on some type of paid advertising that they can get a return off of.
Rick, I wrote that down. I got a list of Rick quotes. I'm gonna write this book at some point in the future. That is amazing.
Well, we are recording this as well, so
okay, good. I'll come back. I'll come back.
But yeah, I think that's really great, and I mean, spoken like a direct response guru, right? I mean, because direct response is all about generating results directly from the advertising, where kind of going back decades. I don't know the history of direct response, but I imagine before that, people were just looking at, you know, a billboard for Coca-Cola, and there's no way to measure what, you know, what the response really was to that. And I think that's what a lot of advertising was focused on. And direct response is all about results, you know, finding that ROI and then doing more of it, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It's not only a quicker path to profitability, you know, and I'm sure Rick agrees, it's a quicker path to building a brand.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. You get the product in people's hands, let them start talking about it.
Yeah, people like it.
Good things happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me just ask about one alternative path. So the path you just described is when a person is well financed, or when there's a good budget ready to be committed to marketing this product. You know, what about if that's not the case? What about kind of Shopify sites and kind of building a list and building a list and retargeting the audience and kind of like that type of path? Like, when would you use that? And maybe say a bit more about that, Jason.
Yeah, so there's a couple of different paths that you can take. You can build up quite a following and a customer list using social media if you know what you're doing. There's another alternate path. I've never personally done this because we've been able to gather so much intelligence on the Amazon platform that we know it's going to be a success before we put down the down payment to the factory to make it. But crowdsourcing is another great way to sort of go, you know, sort of these funding pages. You can develop a following early on, get them to donate money to finance the development of the product, and you give them a product. And forgive me, I'm the names of some of these crowdfunding sites are escaping me right now.
Like Kickstarter,
thank
Indiegogo.
Yes, both of those two are great. And, you know, Rick wrote a book on video persuasion. Videos are very important to having a successful campaign on either one of those platforms. But it's a great way to put your idea, your product out there, and you get that sort of small base of loyal consumers and people who are interested, brand ambassadors, if you will, of the product. You can even get funding that way, and that's a great way to get it out, get the product out into people's hands, get that early feedback, make your early adjustments, and then also, you know, raise some money to get things going.
Yeah. And then Rich, I've been an entrepreneur all my life, and I've started many businesses with zero funding. And basically, you can still build a business by bootstrapping, guerrilla marketing. It just takes longer and it's not as easy. And so when we're talking about building a $1 billion brand, that's when we're talking about paid advertising. But if we're an entrepreneur just starting a business in our basement, you hear these success stories all the time. And then you do have to do things like organic social media. I'm a big believer in PR. That was our very first big success with the Juice Man business. We were able to get on a national talk show. One media placement generated over 15. Show you how I'm going to date myself. 15,000 letters requesting more information, and that's how we started that business up. So there are definitely ways to do this if you're an entrepreneur that just requires a little bit more work, guerrilla marketing, but you can definitely start a business that way. It just takes a little bit longer to scale it up because of your bootstrapping.
Yeah, that's a great distinction. Okay, so we're going to wrap it up in a few minutes. I do have a question here that I'd like to answer. And so that is, do you have some tips for contacting, evaluating consultants or intermediaries to help market a product? Any quick red flags? So, I mean, my answer for that would be, in general, most marketing professionals will focus on something specific. They'll help you scale ads. They'll help you with Facebook ads. They'll help you manage an Amazon account. The biggest red flag is someone who says, I'll take your idea from nothing and I'll make it a success. That's generally not what marketing people do. That's called launching a business. And you can't hire someone to launch a business for you, but you can hire marketing people to get you from point A to point B.
Yeah, and Rich, I would add on to that you look at the track record. Show me some case studies or examples of success, preferably in the category that you're going to be working in, as another good way of filtering out who would be good and who wouldn't.
And Rich, I'd just add one more thing. And Rick is one of the best listeners I've ever met. And, he's so good. I'm convinced that one of the reasons he's become a legend is because he has a genuine interest in his clients. He asks a lot of questions. He gets excited as the client does about their product. I think if you're talking to marketers, and there's a lot of them out there, there's a lot of fly-by-night folks that are out there in the marketing, especially the digital marketing space. I mean, I'll save some colorful language for another time, but if the digital marketer is only talking about themselves and how great they are, and they don't show any real interest about finding out who you are, and they're not listening and they're not paying attention to your product, then I think that's also a red flag.
Great. Awesome. Well, Rick, Jason, this has been amazing. So how can people learn more about you or get in touch with you? Rick, I'll start with you.
Yeah, mine is really simple. They can go to my personal website, which is rickcesari.com. That's RickCesari, rickcesari.com. And actually, if you just drop me a quick email, if you're listening to this and ask to get my free marketing bonuses, and you drop me an email, I'll send it out to you just as a bonus for listening to this program today. But that's the best way to get in touch with me is going to my website. And then my books you mentioned earlier, you can find them on Amazon.
Great. And how about you, Jason?
And I dropped my contact information on the chat there as well. You can reach out. You can reach out to me by email, jason@avenue7media.com, or my website at avenue7media.com. And just let me know that you listen to Rick and I on Rana and Rich's webinar podcast, and we'll take care of you.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. And I'll there's going to be a recap email that will should have access to this recording, and also will have links to some of that information. I'll also include links to the podcast interviews that I did of Jason and Rick, which were fantastic. I'll include links to them on my website.
Rich? Rick and Jason, thank you very much. This is overwhelming. I did ask you to bring something different to us, but you brought something. You guys delivered something different, a different model, a very entertaining presentation which stands out. I can even compare this to the unique sales proposal. I think in that sense, yes, you surely did. Yes, I think this is something, I really enjoy this model. I speak on behalf of the audience. I'm sure everyone will agree. I have a simple elementary question. I don't know if it's Jason or Rick will respond this. With the increase of the share of the online market, what will happen to the brick and mortar premises? Will they survive? I mean, is this something cultural? Will this happen in North America, or it'll be different in Brazil? It will be different somewhere else?
You know, go ahead, Rick. Go ahead, Rick, after you.
Well, Jason and I feel very similar to this. We're big believers in something we call being sales agnostic. And we believe offering the product where people like to buy the product. Now, in North America right now and other parts of the world, everything's gravitating towards digital, especially with the COVID and everything else, and Amazon. But there's other cultures where that online presence isn't as advanced, and people like to go to retail stores still. So I'm always a big believer in really having the product available wherever people want to buy it. So for us, that's Amazon, that's your e-commerce site, that's online marketplaces, that's brick and mortar retail. Now, as far as survival, I think that any brick and mortar chain, I think the ones you see failing are the ones that failed to change quick enough and failed to implement their online strategy fast enough. It's not that brick and mortar people don't like to shop, it's that people are transitioning from that format to more online. But there's still a balance where I think it's good. And I actually see a lot of starting to see some migration the other way, where you have totally online stores are opening up brick and mortar stores so people can come in and touch and feel the product and shop the old fashioned way. So there's a place for everything. It's just, if you're a old school brick and mortar shop, you need to be looking at your online marketing and your e-commerce and your Amazon and making it all fit together.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rick. A final comment on mine. You know, one of the beautiful things in our profession that we make great connections. We meet bright people, we meet interesting people, and we become friends. And in our profession, in the IP profession, it's a share and it's a flux of information. It's an exchange of knowledge, what you call knowledge sharing. And this happened today. It was very educational. It was very captivating. And I learned a lot. I don't know about the others. I suspect everyone did, because it's closely related to my business, to my work, but I don't master any of those topics. So I have learned a lot. I'm humble enough to say that. And I would like to do this again somewhere down the road. I would like to have you guys doing a next episode, as I may call it. And who knows, I can bring in some Brazilian entrepreneurs and we can do something exciting again. Thank you.
Sounds great.
We'd be honored to
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rana. Thank you, Rich.
Yes.
Always a
And I
pleasure,
will-
Rick.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
I thank the audience for their interest and time. Thank you very much, Rich. Thank you very much, Rick and Jason. It was wonderful. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I know.
Bye.